You Smurfs don't know Smurf about Smurf.
Smurf that Smurf up.
Alright, shut up. Smurfs is a uniquely puzzling, that's not the right footage. Smurfs is a uniquely puzzling movie, but what really puzzles me is, well, the Smurfs in general, honestly? Yeah, playing my hand a bit too early here. I don't understand the tiny blue people. Despite how insanely popular and profitable Smurfs is as a franchise, I rarely see anyone who's like a mega Smurf superfan. I won't deny they exist. I have some friends who are fond of the Smurfs, and I know my mum liked them as a kid, but my main point is I don't really understand how they've managed to maintain relevancy past the 80s. On topic actually, I was walking around Bristol with my dad the other day and I came across this. I don't know who made this. I just know I want them castrated. The Smurfs are just one of those recognizable pop culture icons with easily identifiable and memorable designs, and that's really all there is to them. Because I have never met anyone who has told me with a straight face that they liked any kind of Smurf property from TV, film, and video games, especially when it comes to film. The live-action Smurfs movies are f***ing dreadful, and rightfully earn a reputation as two of the worst movies ever made. Also, they gave me nightmares as a kid, and can you honestly blame me? They're absolutely terrifying. They then rebooted the franchise with an animated movie back in 2017 that no one watched. I heard it was fine, but I don't care. And now they've rebooted it again, and this movie's marketing, fuck me.
Come on, Khaled!
DJ Khaled? Everyone's had their turn with mocking the trailers for this movie, and rightfully so. But to weigh in for a second, it was like every possible negative quality that you could find in trailers for kids' movies. Forced pop culture references, lowbrow humor, cringeworthy jokes, celebrity voice acting, if you can call whatever Rihanna does here acting. Girl, when we told you to get back in the booth, this isn't what we meant. It felt like a trailer for a kids movie that got ripped straight out of the mid-2000s. Not helped by the character posters following suit. I don't know what Jack's films did to deserve this kind of slander, but okay. And the crowning jewel found in this sewer slide of shit was the introduction of Influencer Smurf.
Influencer?
Smash that subscribe button!
He's a Smurf, but an influencer. Wow, what a stupid f***ing movie, everyone said in unison. And so the reception towards these trailers was overwhelmingly negative, and Influencer Smurf was cancelled for trying to meet up with a minor in a sting operation. But there were a handful of clips released recently that got a few people singing a different tune, with some surprisingly clever and charming jokes written by people who were very self-aware about what the Smurfs actually is. So that got me thinking as I headed to my seat in an almost empty theater, because somehow I managed to secure an exclusive screening on accident, and by almost empty I mean I was completely alone except for a whole ass family with 7 kids showing up on a Tuesday, and also 2 couples going on a double date who mostly spent most of the film smooching in the front row, so good for them I guess. I completely lost track, my bad. I was thinking, was this just a case of the marketing screwing the movie over and the film itself wouldn't actually be that bad? Well, my ladies and germs, it was somehow both. I don't know. How was it both? Now granted, the movie was not a disaster. It is not nearly as terrible as the trailers would have suggested. There's no part of this film's soundtrack where you randomly hear "We the best music, DJ Khaled" over what's happening on screen. The film isn't anywhere near as cringe as you'd think. And on top of all of that, they took Influencer Smurf out back and shot him in the fucking forehead. Seriously, Influencer Smurf does not exist. He was never a part of the film to begin with. They just made him up for the trailers, you silly idiots. A large amount of the hate likely would have died down had they just shown that it was Vanity Smurf the whole time. Seriously, they just edited Vanity Smurf and called him Influencer Smurf. Who in the fucking marketing team planned this out? Dutch Vanderland? So yes, I can safely say that the film's marketing really screwed this movie over. But if you were thinking this was a Transformers 1 scenario where the film is actually shockingly great, wake up, the accident was 5 years ago. It's Smurfs. I don't think you can make the Smurfs work in a feature-length film anyway, but the people behind this one certainly tried, and it led to some interesting decisions being made. Spoiler warning in case you don't care. If you want the short version of this review, we Smurfs are the guardians of all good in the universe.
Fucking what?
And now the long version. Despite most of the marketing focusing on Rihanna is Smurfette, it quickly dawns on you that you were tricked into watching a movie where James Corden is the main character, as he tries to discover what makes him stand out from all the other Smurfs through after defining characteristics and hobbies, which is, as low as the bar is for storytelling involving these blue little shits, admittedly kind of interesting, and there's some potential there for sure. This feels like it was written by people who are familiar with the Smurfs brand and actually wanted to try something new with it. until they have Rihanna tell him to believe in himself later in the film when it becomes clear they're just gonna do what you expect them to do. It's a basic story about building up this one Smurf's self-esteem and searching for who he really is without any real surprises. The real surprises come from this movie's plot because it's somehow basic and predictable yet completely off the crack pipe. Let's get one thing out of the way. There is no reason for this movie to be a live-action hybrid at all. The fact they're in the real world has little to no justification other than the live-action movies did it, and that made them a ton of money. But the live-action movies, as awful as they were, had their plots revolve around the fact that these little cartoon creatures are in the real world. Smurfs 2025 just has a certain percentage of the story take place in a live-action setting for no real reason other than shaking up the visuals, I guess. About 70% of this movie is animated, which I'm happy about because there are some genuinely really nice looking scenes in this movie, and I like this art style a lot more than I like the Lost Village art style. But I still think they could have just committed to being fully animated instead of this piss poor hybrid style, because a lot of things do not make much sense anymore. So Razamel is the main villain of the movie, right? And his castle is in the real world, but he and his assistant are animated. And there's an entire sequence towards the end of the film where James Corden Smurf and Smurfette hop into a fast food bag and get delivered to Razamel's castle by a real person, who hands the food over to an animated butler. I don't care if this is a nitpick, but as someone who likes things to stay consistent, this one moment really demonstrated how much of a colossal cluster this film's art direction and world is. Like, yeah, it's a kid's movie, but they could have at least tried. It just didn't feel like anyone gave a shit, which can be said about the rest of the movie because the movie just straight up forgets shit. Also, I may be going insane, but I swear the Smurfs themselves fluctuate in height constantly and it was driving me crazy. If I'm right about that though, they had to manually tweak just how tall they were for certain scenes to work, which is really funny. Smurfette is the secondary protagonist, and the movie pretends she has an arc about accepting that she isn't some evil being created by Gargamel and Razamel, but they accidentally played their hand earlier in the movie by having her be aware of that information and it not having an effect on her as she's moved on by this point. In fact, she uses this information to give James Corden Smurf a confidence boost, but then in the third act, Razamel just shows her a scrapbook of all the mundane things she used to do when she was by his side, and she is for some reason completely taken aback that she used to be evil despite already having accepted that. Completely ridiculous and forced conflict for no reason. Speaking of which, the plot revolves around a coalition of evil wizards collecting these 4 magic books, which when brought together and turned evil, can strip away all goodness in the universe. The Smurfs take one of these books, and after many years, it's Papa Smurf's sacred duty to keep it safe and hidden. Please stay with me. This book is also responsible for giving James Corden Smurf magical powers, which kickstart the plot. And when James Corden Smurf goes to save the other Smurfs from Razamel, the book suddenly decides to just throw for content by removing itself from them, making James Corden Smurf doubt himself and then just letting itself be captured for no reason. The movie literally comes to a screeching halt and just takes away the only advantage the Smurfs have because the movie would have been f***ing over. And on top of that, let's talk about this one specific part of the plot that really confused me. I'm not a Smurfs expert. I don't know if this was obvious or not. I don't know if this was ever done before or if it's just a dumb bit of lore I don't know about. But this movie genuinely revolves around the Smurfs seizing their destiny as the guardians of all good in the universe, and that they've had actual epic battles against Razamel and other wizards. Papa Smurf and his brother lost a friend in battle, who by the way, thanks to this movie's enchanting marketing, was already spoiled to be alive before the movie came out because the scene they used to advertise him with was in the final f***ing scene of the movie. This entire plot is so silly. They Avengersified the f***ing Smurfs. People should be rioting in the streets over this. I get there isn't much you can do with the Smurfs to make them interesting for over 30 minutes, much less over an hour, but turning the Smurfs into these universal peacekeeping creatures feels very far removed from whatever the appeal of this brand is meant to be. Oh, and at the end, James Corden Smurf has a dream where everyone encourages him, and after this, he finally finds his thing that makes him a distinct Smurf. And it's just the fucking magic powers he had previously, just without the book. The story just gives him magic powers out of nowhere so he can win. Not a single person cared. Who directed this movie? I'm actually very curious. Oh, well, that makes sense. Surprise, surprise, the plot of Smurfs is really bad. It's not a painful watch like the 2 live-action movies, but it's still not great. Honestly, I think the only reason this movie even exists is to give Rihanna some extra cash, seeing as there's a whole new Rihanna song in this movie sung by Smurfette, and it's actually quite nice. It was one of the best parts of the movie, honestly. But you see how all the marketing was pushing Rihanna, and then you see that Rihanna helped produce the film itself, and how there's multiple Rihanna songs on the soundtrack. The film might just exist to put some extra cash in Rihanna's pocket. and honestly, if there was any film franchise you could get away with doing that in, it would probably be Smurfs. So I respect the commitment to chasing the bag, I guess. I mentioned the animation being decent earlier, but there are some scenes in this movie where they genuinely lock the f in for no reason. The two standouts to me being the scene premiering the new Rihanna song, and a scene towards the end where Smurfette, James Corden Smurf, and Razamel are running through different dimensions that each have their own art styles, like claymation, and even a direct nod to that one Smurfs game on NES. These were genuinely really good sequences that managed to lift the movie out of the garbage can for just a few minutes. Hell, there's a musical sequence at the start of James Corden Smurf, and at first I genuinely considered walking out and pissing all over the empty seats as I left, but dare I say he can actually sing somewhat well, and the sequence was well animated. It didn't make my eyes or ears bleed. I was actually kinda impressed. It also showed that there were some people behind this movie who did care somewhat about the IP and wanted to do it justice. Even a few of the jokes in this movie were fairly decent, but I can't think of many that really made me facepalm like the trailer suggested I would. Okay, the "I think I smurfed my pants" line is still in the movie, but the dialogue really wasn't that terrible. I can't in good conscience say this movie was soulless, but it's still not very good. There are some other things I could complain about, I guess. One of the big revelations of the movie is Papa Smurf has a super try-hard brother, but if I'm being honest, after 20 minutes you could literally remove him from the film. His only purpose is taking the Smurfs from one location to another, and that's it. James Corden and Rihanna can't voice act for shit. Like, they don't sound terrible, but they're also not really acting or putting any sort of effort in. I think that's about it, really. The Smurfs 2025 is a cinematic cry for help. There have been 4 Smurfs movies now with 2 reboots, and it's clear no one really knows how to make these guys work in a feature-length film. The movie is not nearly as bad as the trailers and marketing suggested it would be. I don't know what really compels companies to hire the shittiest trailer editors of all time for animated movies, and if there's really nothing for you to watch with your kids, I'd say you could do far worse than this. But Smurfs 2025 is not very good. I'd really be shocked if the Smurfs got more movies after this. Just let it go, man. Anyway, that's the end of the video. You know what? Just watch Superman instead, honestly. I need another dose of hope after suffering through this slop fest.